Hello, my name is Victoria Rivera, and I'm a wellness psychotherapist in New York City, and welcome to Mental Health Wellness Wednesday. We are talking about acute mental health treatment for COVID-19, and this is part 3, managing and understanding grief and the grieving process. So we're in a sense of grief right now, a collective grief, whether it's with the losses of lives or the loss of the ability to even walk outside. There are so many levels and layers to the sense of grief and to the sense of loss, which actually comes from the core feeling of sadness. And when we feel sad, we can react in all kinds of ways. And you notice this by the reaction of other people, but you also notice this in your own reaction. So I thought what might be helpful is to review and to go over the 5 stages of grief that Dr. Catherine Kubler-Ross gave us, and this is kind of somewhat a universal sense of human suffering and in stages of grief, although, nothing is really universal when it comes to humans at times, or humans' emotions, actually. So, take all this stuff with a grain of salt. But I think it's important and it could be very beneficial to review and to go over. So the first stage is denial, and denial really helps us to, one, deny the reality of what is actually happening, because there's so much pain that's associated what the reality is. And this makes a lot of sense when you think of us evolutionary wise, right? If we get bit by a tiger, sitting in that pain immediately will render us immobilized, and we won't be able to fight or flight. So we have to get the heck out of there and try to save our lives, even if our arm is bitten. And so dwelling in that pain and the reality of that pain wouldn't be so helpful, right? So, we can kind of make a parallel that psychological pain is much the same. If we're in psychological pain at the time of something happening, and denying the reality is very helpful, because then it actually mobilizes you to do something so that you can get out of an unsafe situation. So denial is the first stage of grief. Anger is the second stage of grief. And that means that you want to feel empowered, and that you feel like you need to react and act in a way to reassert control and reassert power. And sometimes that comes in the form of blaming other people, of engaging in power struggles, externalizing the issues, sometimes even refusing to comply with the rules that are set. Bargaining is the third stage of grief. And this is kind of where denial breaks down. We start to acknowledge the reality, but might not be so ready to actually accept. So you start to kind of make, bargains with yourself and with the world. It's less painful way of kind of dealing with things. And then we have despair and depression. And that's when the denial decreases. And we feel a sense of hopelessness, we feel disempowered, and we might engage in feeling sorry for ourselves and for everything in the world, which is totally okay. I think that, if we can shift that to compassion, that helps the process of despair move a little bit faster, and kind of mobilize to more of acceptance, which is the last stage of grief. And acceptance means to acknowledge and to surrender to what is, You can't stop denying what's happening. You have to kind of accept what's happening. And then you start to be able to kind of deal with things a little bit more rationally and more openly, which makes a lot of sense. So being able to deal with the feelings of grief and loss is one of the most difficult things, I think, as a human, because I think that we're often trying to avoid actually feeling any of these feelings because they can feel so overwhelming and painful. And I think particularly the stage of despair, a lot of times people have a hard time feeling like they'll be able to get out of that stage, which is a real struggle for you and for anybody who has difficulty with dealing with the real deep core feeling of sadness, because that's where the despair comes in, is that deep core feeling of sadness. Again, we're in this all together, so we're all going through this collective grief. And one of the first things that we do as humans is we try to connect with each other, especially when we're in a difficult situation, when we're in a situation where we need help. So asking for help first and foremost is imperative in being able to process and go through the grief and loss. And then accepting help when you are able to get help. Sometimes that's hard for a few of us. And then once you reach that stage of acceptance, you're better able to actually give help. And another theme that I think has been coming up for a lot of people is the sense of guilt that they are actually taking care of themselves, that they are allowing themselves to feel some of the feelings. And sometimes some of the feelings, like anger, can be really disruptive to your social situation and connections and the people that you have in your relationships. You can always repair those. I got angry, I'm really upset, I'm really sad about everything that's going on. And attempt to do better the next time by being aware of what some of those triggers are for you, and kind of getting back to the core emotion of the feeling of sadness and being able to express that sadness in whatever way you need to for yourself. So connecting with people can be a great way, especially if you have people that you trust and that you know really care about you, that feels safe to actually express these feelings of sadness and to process the losses and to explore your own process of grief. I hope that's helpful. Thank you very much. If you need anything, please feel free to contact me. I'm available, and if I can't help you, I know of how you can get help. So take care of yourselves and take care of everyone around you. See you next week. Well, probably earlier than that. All right.